Hi, this is Tammy and welcome to Life Began in a Garden. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a simple dandelion jelly. We're only using the flowers of the dandelion here, and so you need to pick a bunch of flowers, and then once you have a good sized bowl full of flowers, then you just pick off the petals, only the yellow part. Leave that back part behind, but you can hold on to it and kind of swirl the flower between your finger and your thumb, and it helps to loosen up those petals so that you can pull them off easier. There's different ways of doing this, but this is the way that I have found anyway that works best for me. And as you can see there, I'm not actually getting all the petals off. It's very time consuming to try to get some of those ones on the edges off. And the part that's left over, I'm going to be drying anyway because I'm going to make a dandelion tincture that will have the flower, the leaves, and the root in it. And all of that needs to be dry, so I'm going to be adding this into it. But for now, I'm just showing you how I get those petals off of there without getting the green. And the green, if you use it, it of course changes the color of the jelly, but it also gives it a bitter taste. And the dandelion flowers, the yellow part by themselves, gives the jelly a very sweet taste. And the only thing that's going in this jelly is those petals and pectin to make it gel and sugar. So first we need to soak those petals overnight, and I do recommend using bottled water instead of tap water. And for that particular one, I had 4 cups of petals that I used once I had them all picked off. And so I boiled 4 cups of the bottled water, and once it came to a boil, I poured it over all of those dandelion flowers. And then you put a lid on this, and that's a good sized bowl. So I just used a dinner plate and put it over the top of it. You do stir it up like I'm doing here first. And then put the lid over it, whatever you want to use. And once it's cooled off enough to put it in the fridge, then put it there and leave it there overnight. And then you would be making your jelly the next day. And so now it's the next day. And this is what I use. It's a jelly strainer, and it makes it so much easier to strain the juice out when you're making jelly. That's the parts that come in it, and it screws onto that circle part that's at the top, and then that bag is a cotton bag, and it comes with that package also. And you just tie it so that it stays on there when you start pouring stuff into it, and the weight doesn't make it fall through. And then all you have to do is just pour your stuff in. And I'm doing this holding the camera, so I don't have the camera stationary. So you pour it in, and it's not going to show me getting all of the pulp out of there, but I do get it all out, so that it all is in the strainer. And then you can let that sit there for a few hours if you want to and strain on its own. But then once it's through and no more juice is coming through, then it's good to mash it with a wood spoon or something. Just kind of mash on it, not real hard, but mash on it enough to get that extra juice out. So now I have 4 cups of juice and 4 cups of sugar, and I use Domino sugar, but you can use whatever sugar that you prefer. And I use the Sure Gel pectin, and I forgot to mention this, but you need 1 lemon. Make sure that you wash all your jars, all your containers, everything that you're using in this canning process. Make sure you wash it all very good, and then once you've washed it and you set it out to dry, you're going to use a water canner to can this with. But first we're going to just place the empty jars in there and put the lid on. That's the one that I use. I have another one, the traditional water canner, and it's bigger around, and I use it if I'm canning quartz or something, but with jelly this just seems to be the easier one to use for me. So it's really just a stock pot that has that strainer in it, and I place, the jars have all been washed and rinsed, but I place them in there empty. So I put them in there upside down, I fill up the jar with water and then place it in there. And then you keep filling it up until the water is at least 2 inches above the jelly jars. And then once you've done that and you've got all your jars in there, then you place it on the stove and turn the heat on high and let this boil. And you don't start timing this until it actually, but once it is at a full boil, and you'll have the lid on it too, by the way, but once it comes to a full boil, you let it boil for at least 10 minutes. And it takes at least 10 minutes of boiling for any bacteria that might be still on those jars or in that or in the water itself, whatever. It takes at least 10 minutes for the bacteria to kill those germs. So I let mine boil a little bit over 10 minutes. I usually do about 12 minutes just to make sure that it's killed off anything that was there. And then your jars are sterilized. And once you have sterilized them, then the next thing will show you how to take them out of there and what I do with them next. Okay, so for your lids and the rings, I place them in just a regular pot that's big enough to hold them. I put the lid inside the ring and turn it upside down in the pot, and I don't boil that because that will mess up that little rubber strip that's on the lid itself and your jar may not seal right. But I turn it up high enough just to reach a simmer, and I let them just sit there and simmer. So now my jars are finished sterilizing, and I use that gripper there to take them out, water out of them, and then turn them upside down on something that is clean. I used parchment paper on a baking sheet. So make sure that you're not just putting them upside down in the oven, because then they may come in contact with germs, and you just finished killing germs, so you don't want to get any more germs back on them. So I just place them in the oven, and I turn the oven on about 200. And actually you need to have the oven already heated up to 200. And that will keep your jars hot while you're doing this part. So this is the liquid that we strained out. It's all the juice from the dandelion. And now I'm adding 2 tablespoons of freshly squeezed juice and the bag of pectin. So inside that box is this bag, and you just tear it open and you pour the whole thing in there. And then you start stirring. You want to make sure you stir soon so that that doesn't start clumping. And the heat will be turned on high. And you just keep stirring this, even though it's not boiling yet. Just stir it anyway so that it doesn't start trying to stick down at the bottom of it. And it just helps keep everything incorporated in there. And the reason for the lemon juice is because dandelion, they don't have acid in them. And for you to water bath a jelly, and then can it and store it on a shelf, it has to have acid in order for it to not go bad during the time that you're storing it. So the acid comes from the lemon, and you don't even taste the lemon juice in here on the final product. You won't even taste it. You won't know it's there. But it's acting as a preservative for the dandelion jelly. So if you're canning a fruit that's high in acid, then you wouldn't have to add the lemon juice. But anytime you're making a jelly that is no acid or low acid, you do need the lemon juice in there. Okay, so this is boiling. Make sure that your pot is pretty high above whatever the level is of your juice, because when it comes to a full boil, that level will start rising. Those bubbles start coming up, and if you don't have a pot that's deep enough, then it actually could boil over, and that's a huge mess when that happens. So just go ahead and use a big pot to begin with. So you're going to boil this on a full boil for exactly 2 minutes, and then once you do, you add your sugar to it, and you stir constantly you're doing this again for 2 minutes. You stir constantly for the whole 2 minutes, and you're going to bring it back to a boil again. So the sugar will incorporate easily, even though you can still see some of it in there right now. It does incorporate very well. And once you get this to a full boil again, that is when you start the next 2-minute timer. So you boil to begin with. When you first put the lemon juice and the pectin in there, you boil it and get it to a full rolling boil, and that takes about 2 minutes. But this one, you add the sugar and you get it back to that full rolling boil, and then you start the timer to make sure that you're boiling it for a full 2 minutes. And that gives the pectin time to incorporate in there and do whatever it does to make the jelly gel. So this is a full rolling boil, and it's foaming there, and it does come up some, but not near the top. But that's why I say to use a deep pan when you're doing this. And this one actually does very well. The foam does come up like that, but it doesn't hang around. It ends up going back down, and it's starting to there already. So once this is finished, there's not any film that you need to skim off of it like there is with some jellies. I think this has turned out to be a very pretty color. Some people who make this actually add a few drops once you're completely through with the boiling and you take it off the stove. They add a few drops of yellow food coloring to it to give it more of the color that dandelions are. But I like this being all natural, and I really don't like adding food coloring into anything because I feel like we have enough food coloring in our foods anyway. So I don't add it to mine, but that is an option if you want to do that. And also, this is something else that I actually have done before, is that I've added about 1/4 of a teaspoon. Once I take this off the heat, I add about 1/4 of a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract to it. I'm not doing it with this one because I actually like the flavor just like it is, but I also like it with the vanilla extract in it. Don't use imitation vanilla though. If you're going to do that, use vanilla extract. This is showing the level that we're going to fill the jars once it's off the stove. And it is off the stove now, so we're beginning to fill the jars. However, when I did this, my camera, I thought I had it recording and it was not. simulating here. This is actually apple juice that I'm pouring in right now, but I just want to show you how full you need to get the jars and how to do this step. I went through this whole step with you. Actually, it made 6 jars instead of 3, but I did not push the record button, and the whole process was not recorded. And once I got that far through, there was nothing I could do about that, so I decided that I would do this so you could see how far up you need to fill the jars with the jelly. And also, I want you to see that I'm using a wet paper towel there, and you wipe the rims of the jars to make sure that you're getting off any drops that might have went on there. If the jelly got on the rim of the jar, it might keep it from sealing. So once you've done that, place your lids on there and then your screw bands, and just kind of finger tighten them. You're not tightening them super tight, just like a finger tight. You can see from this how I do it. So the recipe that I gave you actually makes 6 jars, but here this is just pretend, just so you can see what we're doing. So it's actually more than 3. And that one looks kind of like the people who do it, adding the food coloring to it. It gives it more of that yellow color, but this again is just apple juice in there. And this is what it actually looks like when it's finished. And make sure that you are canning going by what your elevation level is. Ours is 938 in Knoxville, Tennessee. So you need to check and make sure that you're not, it's the level you are above sea level. So there's a chart on the internet that tells you, first of all, you can get on there and see what your elevation level is, and then it tells you how many minutes you need to do this canning that we're doing here. So when you put these jars in the water bath, for us in Knoxville, Tennessee, we need to can them on full boil for 10 minutes. And then that is considered a safe amount of time to boil it. But if you are at an elevation that is higher than we are, because we're 938, so if yours is higher than 1,000 above sea level, then you would need to do yours longer. So just look and see how long you need to do a water bath canning if you have never checked that before. So then once it's on there and it's gone through, I actually let it sit there for 11 minutes and boil. And make sure that you put the date on it and that you put what it is in there. And if you did more than one batch in the same day, then call one batch, batch 1, and the next batch, batch 2, and so on. And then let them sit there and seal, and then check the seal to make sure that it actually has sealed correctly. And leave them setting undisturbed for 24 hours, and then you can take that ring off of them and store them away on your shelf or where. If you have any that did not seal, you can just put them in the refrigerator and use them first. I hope you enjoyed this. May God bless you and your family, and I hope that you had a wonderful Easter. And thank you so much for watching my channel. I hope that you will try some dandelion jelly, and it's actually amazing how good it tastes.